Greg Oakford from Golf Victoria to talk about digital marketing in 2016.
Thanks, Ben. Is that microphone okay too? Yep, all good. I know this is the last presentation of the day. Hopefully this content won't bore you. Hopefully it's relatively interesting. I do want to hopefully provide just a little bit of value. Just got a short amount of time today, so my presentation will probably go for around about 30 to 35 minutes, and then we'll open up to the floor for a couple of questions and answers. I do have a prize for the best question as well, which we'll get to later on. Yeah, the topic today is digital marketing. So you've probably heard the term social media a few times throughout today. So certainly social media comes under the umbrella of digital marketing. So just a couple of notes on me. My main responsibilities at Golf Vic are marketing, commercial partnerships, communications, and also working on the Oakford Vic Open, which I've obviously had a lot to do with Anthony in the last 4 years. Down at 13th Beach. If you're on any of these platforms here, you can find me online. The photos you do see here, this was actually at Facebook headquarters, just outside of San Francisco, about halfway through last year. I was very fortunate enough to get about a 2-hour tour from a contact of mine that worked at Facebook. So this is just outside Facebook headquarters, and that's the only branding. This was probably the one thing that really surprised me in the building, was the only piece of branding they have in the entire Facebook complex is that thumbs up outside of the building. So on the right hand side here, this is actually the Facebook wall. So in traditional chalk, I actually got to write #GolfVic on the Facebook wall there. So that was a pretty cool experience. So just going to open up with a question. Above all else, what is the one single thing you need to be able to market whatever you're selling?
Product.
Audience. Or customers.
Audience. You need attention. And that's probably going to be the theme of today, is attention. So my belief that the attention is in this thing at the moment. And it's going to continue to be in this thing. So we're going to look at attention throughout as the theme of today. So here's an image, and I would have used a 2016 image, but Google Images wasn't too kind to me. So we're going to roll with 2013. But this is really just to highlight, I suppose, the penetration of smartphones and tablet devices over the last 5-10 years. So just under 80% of Australian adults now have a smartphone, and that number is going to continue to grow. From a category of 18 to 34-year-olds, 95% own one of these. So it's a pretty big statistic. Does anyone know how many hours we spend on this thing a day? Anyone take a guess? 10 hours? Anyone else? What? I didn't hear that one. 2? Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah, so there's no real right or wrong answer. Most of the studies that have been completed recently, they range between 2 and 5, but there was a study of 18 to 33-year-olds just last month, I think it was, that showed that they check their phones relatively about 85 times a day, which equates to about once every 10 minutes if you're awake for 16 hours. Couple of questions. Who now, in their own media consumption behaviours, watches TV or listens to audio, as in radio or podcasts, on their own time? So that might mean you have Stan or Netflix or Foxtel IQ. Who, just hands up, who watches TV and radio on their own time? So probably about 90% of the room there. So that's important when we think about attention, because if you think about it from a traditional media standpoint with TV commercials, radio commercials, etc. People are not consuming those commercials anymore because we're so accustomed now to being interrupted during our media consumption behaviours that we just fast forward the ads. Or with Netflix and Stan, you don't get ads. So these questions are pretty important to think about the attention. And why is attention important? Well, if we're trying to sell our summer membership or get kids into golf, whatever you're trying to do at your golf club, if you're trying to tell a message, you need the attention of the person that you're telling the message to. So I was going to ask people to put up their hands, but I prefer to get everyone to stand. Can everyone that's on Facebook themselves stand up in this room? So if you have a Facebook account yourself, no, your personal, not for your golf club, personal. So just have a look around. I would say it's probably 85 to 90% of the room. Yep. Okay. Thank you, guys. You can sit back down. Now we'll just go the traditional hands up. Who has their own personal Twitter account? Yeah, that's a lot too. It's probably the same amount as Facebook. Instagram, personal, I'm talking. Yeah, probably about 80% too. Snapchat. Actually, stand up if you've got Snapchat. Personal Snapchat. Okay. Yep. 5 people. And who would have this device on them pretty much 24/7 within an arm's length? Have a look around the room right now. I think that's pretty much every person except for maybe 1 or 2. So these things are important when we think about attention. Where's the attention? So what is digital? So it's a pretty broad term. I'm sure everyone has different thoughts. Are there any hardcore tech nerds in the room? No? Good. So we can rip on them. So they'd probably tell us it's data being transmitted through a whole bunch of ones and zeros. But for the purpose of today, we're going to classify digital in terms of what the technology can do for our marketing efforts. So some examples of digital is anything related essentially to the internet. So that could be email, social media, analytics, the cloud, but it can also relate to non-internet related things like SMS through your phone, and also electronic signage, think the MCG boundary line. What I think is a more important question though is why digital? Why is this shift happening? Why are customers using social media? Why are they using mobile? And why is the data showing the trends that it is? So just going to ask you another question. Why do you think so many people, which is all of you, why are we all consuming through this device and tablets now? Yeah. Yeah, all good answers. I really like convenience. So what is digital's unfair advantage? First of all, it's data. So much data. And you can now target specific audiences. So there's less wastage in our advertising and our marketing efforts. We can get to the people we want to get to. It's no longer a scattergun approach. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But it's much more advanced than our traditional advertising mediums. So reporting and analytics. So we now have visibility on what's working and what's not, and we can adjust. So you can make a video, it's not working, you put an image up, it's not working, you can test and learn. Drive specific action. So what I mean by this is if you want to get people to a certain website, you want an app install, whatever your action you want to drive, you can do that through digital. It's pretty hard to do that through traditional ways of advertising. Platforms age up. Does anyone know what I mean by that? Anyone take a stab in the dark? So I'll give you an example. I've been on Facebook for over 10 years now. So I got one when I was at a college in America when it wasn't open to the rest of the world. At the time, MySpace, some of you might remember MySpace. MySpace was the big player in town at the time. It's where I communicate. I've got friends from all around the world that's on that platform. And as long as Facebook can evolve the platform just a little bit, which they have, my friends are not going away from the platform. It's where we communicate. So it's the same thing. If your 12-year-old daughter in the room here is on Snapchat, she's going to be on Snapchat in 10 years' time as well. So a lot of times people think that these platforms are a fad or they're going to go away. They're not. It's where we communicate. It's where the modern world is communicating. And it ties back into where the attention is. We need to be where the attention is to get our message to the people we want to get it to. And here's the hook. It's still underpriced. Digital marketing is still underpriced. Okay, so I was going to have a co-presenter with me today, John Sutherland from Golf Australia, but he pulled out. He was going to touch on SEO and SEM, but I'm going to touch on it myself. Search engine optimization. Think of SEO essentially as boosting your way up the ranks of a search engine. So obviously the search engine that comes to mind is Google. So it's very important that you're as high up on those rankings as possible. I'm sure you've all heard about SEO before. SEM, search engine marketing, think Google AdWords. So I'm sure you've all done Google searches before where you might have plugged in restaurants near me and you'll get a few ads at the top, and Google does distinguish it. There's a little green icon that has an ad there, okay? But I think the effectiveness of Google AdWords has probably dropped off a little bit. It has been around for 15 years, the product, and Google will admit themselves that their revenue from Google AdWords is down. But it goes back to the theme of our attention. Who in the room here has probably clicked a banner ad on a website recently? Do you remember anyone clicked no? What about maybe 5-10 years ago though? Do you think you probably would have been more likely to click on a banner ad or more likely to see it? So it probably ties back into attention. I would say that Google AdWords somewhat has become a bit of a blind spot to people. Same with banner advertising. So that's why we need to always make sure that we know where the attention is. So this is just an example of what Golf Australia is doing at the moment with Golf Month. So golf, golf shop here. So if you type in a term, whether it's golf cart, golf shop, play golf in October, golf near me, any of these terms, and one of these ads will pop up on the search. So which platforms are right for your club? Hands up if your club has a Facebook page. Yep. And a Twitter page, hands up. Instagram? Okay, yep, cool. So the answer to this question is all of them. But really, you've got to ask yourself the question first, what are my priorities? So you're trying to get new members, are you trying to increase restaurant bookings? If you've got conference facilities, obviously like Ben does here, are you looking for more green fee players? You've got to ask these questions first. And then second, which I'm sure everyone's thinking about, is how do you continually resource these platforms? Who's going to actually, in my organisation, monitor these platforms and be responsible for them? I do want to touch on or add to what Steve said earlier too on the LinkedIn around commenting and liking and just engaging. It's a really underrated way of building brand equity and community equity. Even if someone just comments on one of your photos on Facebook, if you just like that photo or comment on them like, thanks Stewie, good hit, whatever it is, that goes a long way, not only for that person, because you've got to think about it sitting on their side of the fence, but it also goes a long way for the other people that are reading the comments, because they think that, hey, this club actually gives a shit. Okay, if I had to choose one, so I'm just going to play a quick video, hopefully it works. So some interesting figures there, obviously. Okay, so the power of Facebook. 1 in every 3 minutes spent on a smartphone in Australia is through a Facebook app. Now that stat's a little bit deceiving because that also includes Instagram. Facebook owns Instagram, but essentially Facebook owns this device. They own the attention of this device. There's 15 million people on Facebook in Australia. So you can obviously see from just standing up earlier by how many people in this room have Facebook themselves. This, and I apologise for, you might not be able to see all the data on the screen here, but I'll certainly send a copy of this presentation to anyone that wants one following. But here's just an audience insight tool in the back end of Facebook. I'm sure some of you in the room have already seen this tool. It's run through Facebook's Business Manager, which I'm going to touch on in a little bit. But there's 1 to 1.5 million active people in Victoria, not Australia, in Victoria, that are age 18 and above. Okay, so we're not even hitting under 18s that have an interest in golf. They're all people you can be talking to right now about your golf club or its offerings. And it doesn't even have to be golf related, it can be conference related. Facebook has so much data, more data than any other company, and that's why it has an effective ad product. So do you want to know how to hack Facebook to reach customers? Dark posts. Very weird name. Has anyone heard of the terminology dark posts? Yep. So it's also called unpublished posts, but Facebook rolls with dark posts. What is the difference between a dark post and a normal post that you're all accustomed to putting up? Maybe it's a photo of your club champions that you've put up on your Facebook page. So a photo of your club champions you've just put up on your Facebook page. I use Huntingdale as an example. I don't know how many likes you have, but let's just say you have 1,000 likes. If you put that up, theoretically, back in the day, it was going to go to maybe 70, 80% of those 1,000 likes, depending on how regularly they check their Facebook page. Facebook changed their algorithm a few years ago. I'm sure some people in the room are aware. So it became more of a pay-to-play model. And a lot of people cried about it, and it did make things a little bit difficult. But when you think about it logically, what other media outlet gives you free advertising? You know, if you call up the Herald Sun and say, hey, I want my club's ad in for free, they're not going to give it to you. So the advantage of the new algorithm is you can actually reach more customers now. And you can reach customers that don't even know that you exist. And that's through a dark post. So a dark post doesn't appear on your page. So Huntingdale could run a dark post to attract women that are 34 to 44, whatever it's going to be, whatever your audience is going to be. You have your ad creative, so that might be an image or a video, and that's going to pop up into the news feed on this thing, and if they're consuming Facebook on desktop or a tablet, that's going to pop up into their news feed, but you're not going to see it on the Huntingdale page. It's still coming from Huntingdale, but it's not coming from the page, if that makes sense. That might not have made sense, but yeah, okay. So dark posts, they're the way to go. That's how you hack Facebook. I was going to show you a live example of a dark post today, but I'm mindful of the time and I know it's late in the afternoon. So I will touch on it a little bit later, but I'm going to offer for anyone that's interested, and I know that's not going to be the whole room, but I'm going to set up a webinar maybe in a week or two's time. I'm going to get everyone on there, and I'm going to show you step by step how you run a dark post, how you set it up. And it's a lot easier than probably you think right now. So anyone that's interested, jump on the webinar with me, and I'll show you how you can do that with your club. You do need to set up what's called the Facebook Business Manager though. So does anyone with their page, I know there's a lot of people, it's encouraging to see how many people in the room have a Facebook page. Does anyone have the Business Manager set up with their page? Hands up. Hands up high so I can see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yep, 8. Okay, so that's good. So, and I should have said before too, out of the people that don't have a Facebook page, don't worry about that. If you're interested in setting one up, I can also help you with that one. So there's 3 levels of the dark post. The first one is your campaign. So if we use a summer membership as an example. So you want to promote a summer membership, so that's your campaign. The next step is your ad set. So who is going to be your audience? So if you think that your audience for these summer memberships are going to be guys that have just come out of footy season that you know that have finished footy, you can actually go, okay, I want to target, making this up now obviously, but 23-year-olds to 40-year-olds that have an interest in footy or have liked the EFL page or this page or that page. And you can actually target them so there's less wastage. And you can run campaigns for as little as $3 a day, $5 a day, and just have them ongoing. So it's, as I mentioned before, it's very underpriced still at the moment for what you can get. We're delivering ads and content to audiences that you want to reach. So one of the things I'm doing at the moment around the Oates Vic Open, and I'm trialling it for the first year this year, is I'm running ads to attract corporate partnerships, or at least interest in corporate partnerships for the Oates Vic Open, against people that have the titles such as CEO, Managing Director, Marketing Manager, Sponsorship Manager, Owner, all of these type of terminology. But then here's the hook. I also say, hey, Facebook, I don't want to just serve ads to people that have those job titles. They need to have an interest in golf as well. And obviously, why? Because they're more likely to probably be open to sponsoring a golf tournament if they have an interest in golf themselves. Is that going to get us a new sponsorship directly? I'm not sure. But is it worth it probably from an awareness standpoint when I'm spending about $3 a day? I think so. And there's a whole range of other things you can do in the back end, such as lead ads, where you can actually get people to put their details in. You might have done it before yourself on your phone or on your desktop, where you plug in your email address, and those details then go to the advertiser and you can follow them up. You actually know who the person is. And then you might be able to stalk them on LinkedIn. The other thing you can do is, and don't worry about the jargon or the terminology of a pixel, but it's essentially a tracking code. So Facebook, you can put a tracking code on your website. So anyone that comes to your website in a certain period of time, you can then what's called remarket to them on Facebook. So for instance, Michael, let's say 1,000 people come to Sorrento's website last month. You can then say to Facebook, out of those 1,000 people, I want to send them a Facebook ad about our 9 and dines throughout the summer on Facebook. So that, and it just goes to those people that have gone to your website, and it's all free. You can set all this up pretty easily in what's called Facebook's Business Manager. Lastly, I did mention this before, Instagram is owned by Facebook. So if you run an ad with Facebook, you can actually get two for the price of one, and you can run those ads on Instagram as well. The effectiveness of Instagram ads now is not as high as Facebook, but it's always changing and always evolving. So just a little bit of a case study again. Apologies, I know you're not going to be able to see much of this information on the screen, but if you get a copy of the presentation, you can have a look at all these stats. This is some ads, some dark posts we ran for the Victorian Boys and Girls Championships, which was hosted at Yarra Yarra a couple of weeks ago. So the junior team come to me and said, we want to get the awareness out about the Vic Boys and Girls Championships. We really want to up the ante on this tournament over the next couple of years. We've secured a great venue. We really want to make this tournament big, and we want to start getting registrations. So the first ad we ran was what's called a carousel ad, which is just multiple images. You've all probably seen it on your own Facebook feeds where you can click across on multiple images. And the biggest key to this ad was the audience we selected. So we actually selected kids that were 13 to 17, because that's in the bracket of the tournament. But we also selected parents that had kids from 8 to 12 and parents that had kids from 13 to 18. Facebook has that data. So they know you're a parent and they know how old your kid is, because you tell everyone every time on Facebook. So you can actually target those people. So we spent about $350 on this campaign over 2 weeks, and we had 1,300 clicks through to the Victorian Boys and Girls Championships homepage. So that's where the entry forms were, or how you could enter online, and you could get all the information as well. So our junior team were thrilled with that. So that I think it was 27, yeah, I can see it at the top, 27 cents per click. So that was a good example for us of a dark post working. We got our audience right by only targeting parents with kids and that they had an interest in golf as well. So that's how specific you can get. The junior team also said we want to run some ads to the interstate audience to let interstate people know that they can play in this event as well. So the cost per click was a little bit higher with this one, and we changed the copy, we changed the wording around our ad as well, obviously we were speaking to an interstate audience, but we kept those demographics relatively similar. We need an interest in golf, kids 13 to 17, and parents that have kids 8 to 12 and 13 to 18. Lastly, and some of you might have seen the live stream, we live streamed the final round out at Yarra Yarra. We obviously, from a traditional standpoint, communicated that message to all the participants upon registration and via email as well. But we also thought, well, if we're live streaming this, let's try to get the message out a little bit broader to people that have an interest in golf. So we ran $50 a day for 3 days leading into the final round. And I think that's the screenshot here. Yeah, 382 clicks we had on that one, and it was 36 cents a click. So again, these are all examples of dark posts, and they're actually quite easy to set up once you get the hang of it. So I'll let you read the slide, but yeah, if you would like to join me for the webinar at a date still to be determined, more than happy to go through how you set up the business manager and then also how you can run a campaign. Mick?
When you speak about people who have expressed an interest in golf,
Yep.
how is that defined? Like, does that mean they've clicked on a link on Facebook that's golf related, or web searches that they've used on their computer that somehow connects in, or what level does it go to?
Yeah, so the golf one, so if you've liked anything golf related, so Facebook essentially have tags attached to all of the different pages. So for instance, if you haven't liked the PGA Tour or Golf Australia or Golf Victoria, but you've liked Callaway Golf, they'll classify you as someone that likes golf. If you've checked in at a golf course before, that'll also count. So yeah, I don't think, I'm not sure on the website question, but obviously with the Pixel, if people have been to your website and you've got Facebook, so some of you probably thought before, how does Facebook know that I've been to Sorrento's Golf Club? Well, think about it, like if I go onto Sorrento's Golf Club's page now, I've got the Facebook app open in the back running, so Facebook's tracking that. So the only way to stop that is for me to actually log in and log out every time I want to use Facebook, and realistically, who's doing that? Same with desktop. So if you've got, Google, if you use Google Chrome and you're on Facebook and then you close it down, but then you open up another tab and you go onto Eastern Golf Club, Facebook's tracking that unless you've gone into Facebook and gone log out. Okay, so Q&A, and I will mention whoever asks the best question will get $100 free advertising when they set up the business manager for their Facebook page. So $100 campaign off the bat. So that'll be for the best question. So hopefully, yeah, that one counts. Yep. So yes, I'll open the floor up. Yep.
With Facebook, and if you're not using it from an advertising perspective,
Yep.
or for member communication,
Yep.
how easy is it to lock it down so you haven't got a lot of information you want trying to keep within your membership getting out to the general community?
Yeah, so you're saying using Facebook as a platform to communicate with your members? Yeah, so if you're putting things, as I mentioned in the example before, if you have 1,000 members and let's say 800 of them have liked your Facebook page, a few years ago you would have been able to communicate with them a little bit easier just by putting it on your page, but now they've changed the game, essentially. They've changed their algorithm to the point where your information on your page is only going to reach a limited number of those people that have liked your page. One thing you could do if you wanted to, and this goes back to the custom audiences, is you can actually throw in all your members' emails into Facebook. And I know everyone's probably going, oh, privacy here, but you can throw it into Facebook and Facebook will say, okay, Pete, out of your 800 email addresses here, 600 have Facebook accounts here. And you can also throw in mobile numbers, etc., and they match it up. And then you've got a custom audience, which you just call Metro members, and then you can actually do a dark post, and which will show up on your feed as well. You can tick a box for it to show up on your normal page, but that message will get delivered depending on how much money you put behind it. For 600 people, it's not going to be a hell of a lot of money. But I think that the effectiveness of probably communicating to your existing members that way is dropped a little bit. I think still, email is obviously a good one, but I think Facebook's biggest asset at the moment is to get to a broader audience that you're not already talking to.
So how much time do you recommend that we spend on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram to keep it relevant? It almost becomes someone's full-time job
Yeah.
to keep it fresh.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and I have empathy for that because I find it tough in my own role, and I have a helper as well. But there's no set amount of time. I would say that probably why I suppose the theme of today was a little bit more skewed Facebook is I understand there's so many platforms out there. that you could all jump onto, but it is a matter of, I suppose, prioritising. So if you had to choose one, it'd be Facebook. If you or whoever's responsible at your club are willing just to get your hands a little bit dirty in the back end of Facebook Business Manager, I think that you'll really benefit, because you don't need to pay an advertising agency, you don't need to pay this person, that person to come in and do some effective marketing for you. You can kind of do it yourself, and it's quite empowering once you get to a handle on it. So I don't know if that answers your question. I would say, if you've got a Twitter page or an Instagram page and you just signed up because, FOMO, I don't want to miss out, and you're not really updating it and you're not engaging, I'd say probably just delete it and get rid of it. You're probably better off to do one or two of the platforms really well rather than trying to do all of the platforms. I'll just add too on Snapchat as well. If you're trying to reach a younger audience, it is hard to build followings on Snapchat at the moment, but these things change. It was hard to build followings on, it was hard to build followings on email once, but it's pretty easy now. So the platforms always evolve, and I would say with Snapchat, one of the good things, if you trust one of the juniors at your club, or maybe even it's a 16 or 17-year-old that works in a pro shop, whatever it might be, Snapchat takeovers. So actually get them to do the content on there, and then you can spruce it out to the younger audience. Any other questions?
Greg, we've got our Facebook and Twitter connected, so we post something on Facebook and it feeds through to Twitter.
Yep.
There's a lot of time marketing around. Can you do the same with sending to Instagram as well?
You can. I personally hate that. The reason I don't like that is you've got to think about the user on the other end. So how many people are on Twitter here and see like an Instagram link with no photo and actually go, oh, I want to click on that? Or how many people go, I'm not looking at that, like I've got to click that and go off somewhere else? Like you're kind of disrupting the pattern of the platform. So whilst it, I suppose, is the cheap, easy fix just to go, oh, I'm just going to link everything. I think it's important to understand the nuances of each platform. So you'll all probably, and I was pretty surprised by how many people actually have an personal Instagram account. So you've all probably seen when you put it, you've got the option of linking your Instagram obviously to Twitter and Facebook. When you link it to Facebook, it comes up as a photo in Facebook. So it's more native to Facebook, but that's because they own it. So whereas Twitter, they want to make it a pain in the ass for you, because they don't want you to link to Twitter because they don't own Twitter. So
Facebook and Instagram, maybe post a photo.
So I think doing that's okay. But with your content, and I suppose one of the things I haven't touched on today is the content is the variable as well. Spent a lot of time, I suppose, on distribution today, how you get your message out. The other variable, the other piece of the puzzle is the content. You would have seen from the video that video marketing is pretty important in a 2016 world. So if anything, like back to your example, Rachel, if you need to spend a little bit of money, I'd be investing on getting your content right, and then the distribution's actually not that hard. You can kind of do that on your own and yourself. So I'd be spending money on the content. But you want to make sure that the content you're putting and the language you're using on each platform, I suppose, is relatively the norm for that platform. Like I run our Golf Victoria Snapchat, and I've got to kind of lean on my 22-year-old colleague even for some of the terminology maybe to use rather than what I would use on Twitter or what I would use on Facebook.
Just a question, Greg, about the content. We do a number of course podcasts that we share to Facebook via YouTube.
Yep.
Which my understanding is that YouTube and Facebook are competitors, so
Yep.
the YouTube video don't actually get much public time on the Facebook page.
Correct.
Is
Yep.
there another platform other than YouTube that you can actually use to boost that profile? Can you actually do it through Facebook itself?
Adding video just through Facebook.
Actually doing video and adding through Facebook.
Yeah.
To increase that
Yeah,
exposure.
and that's what we do a lot now at Golf Vic. I think they've actually gone back on that. So the question was, if you've got a YouTube video and then you copy the link and you put it on Facebook, once upon a time that was fine. It was just kind of treated as a regular post. And then Facebook said, well, Google owns YouTube. Like we're going to bump down the amount of people that's going to see that message if you're going to do that, because we want you to upload your video, what they call natively. So essentially putting if it's an MP4 file, putting that MP4 file, that minute video, straight onto Facebook, and you'll all probably see that's where the automatic plays happen as well. So you're scrolling through, YouTube's not an automatic play, you've got to actually click on it and get outside of the Facebook app. So Facebook wants to own what? The attention. So they don't want you going off to YouTube, they want you to watch their video on their own platform, your video on their own platform. So I would definitely suggest if you're going to upload video, they did have like time requirements on it at one point where I think if you went out any more than 10 minutes, it was really hard. But I watched a hour and 42-minute keynote on Facebook through Apple TV the other night. So it was open on the Facebook app, put it to Apple TV. So there's no kind of time restrictions anymore. Sure.
We've spoken a lot about, I guess, the positive side of social media, and I think one of the things that's often concerned me about this sort of stuff is the forums that you actually open up for people to be negative. And I wonder whether, from a process, procedure perspective and structure perspective around our clubs, whether we've adapted to that quick enough in terms of linking social media policies into constitutions, into actions unbecoming members and all of that sort of stuff. Because I hear examples all the time where you've got members around elections or around whatever it happens to be that use social media sites and Facebook sites as an avenue to post stuff that potentially in the real world would be defamatory, or to bag the committee or bag the club or bag the management or whatever it happens to be. Yeah. And I guess from one of the things that I'm really interested in having a look at from a Golf Victoria perspective is providing some advice around how we can better protect our clubs to cater for the negative side of social media.
Yeah, sure. And I can have a chat to you about that. But I would also say that forums have been around for 20 years since the emergence of the internet, and that kind of keyboard warrior mentality comes out in forums as well, and sometimes it moves over to Facebook. But often negative comments sort themselves out as well. You'd be quite surprised, particularly that pages that have a relatively sizable following, someone will get on and try to do a cheap like by throwing a little flyby comment or whatnot, but often other users then jump on and kind of go, well, you're an idiot about that, and they almost start fighting amongst themselves. But I think in a 2016 world, people are pretty used to seeing, they're almost used to seeing the comments that are there to get kind of cheap likes or a bit of cheap attraction. From a policy standpoint, it's a hard one. If you really get too, I suppose, strung down, and I appreciate that, some of you have got, boards to answer to, and, some people that might have negative connotations of social media as well, and they think, straight away, no, we don't want it. But it's not going away. This is the work. Like, have a look at how many people stood up in this room that had a Facebook account. I mean, this is the thing. Like, it's not going away. So, I'll chat to you more around policies and procedures. I mean, personally speaking, from Golf Victoria's standpoint, we don't get, I would say once a month we might get a little sly comment on whether it's Twitter or whether it's Facebook. And we got one a couple of weeks ago on Twitter, which, kind of, I knew who the person was anyway, and I just sent him a direct tweet and just kind of explained the situation. He said, oh yeah, no worries, thanks for getting back to me. So you can often, I suppose, de-escalate it just by maybe just chatting to them or just sending them a little private message.
On that, how often do you scan the comments and, it's like a 24-hour thing?
What's that, sorry?
How often do you keep scanning the comments and people make, similar to like Stuart's saying, like you might put a post up and someone says, oh, that's a hack or when you want a comp or something. Yeah. Do you scan them and do you have a policy to delete or? It's
nearly every day for me, including the weekends. But we had a comment actually last year when we announced Kari Webb was playing in the Oates Vic Open. And I think someone got on and said kind of, we deleted that straight away. So it really, I think whoever runs your social media, we heard about EQ, IQ earlier, you need someone that has good EQ to run and filter those streams and kind of know where the line is. But there's no set, I suppose, procedure. It's just, you got to monitor it and make kind of the call as it happens. Anyone else? Pete?
I'm going to let Christian go first.
Going back to Stuart's query about the
defamatory comments, we've actually set up a policy, club policy, which gives a member to reserve the right to ask another member to take down a comment if they request it. We had that checked out by our lawyers, and we had that passed that last month for fear that another member could say something about another member, about the club or about that member, that we could have them have that removed. I'm going back to Rachel in terms of how much labour you dedicate to social media. I guess, does it really depend on what your strategy is as a club? I guess Michael's strategy might be different to mine, so I might put in a few more hours because Michael might not have the need. Would that be more of the sort of answer?
Yeah, there's no one size fits all for this, unfortunately. And
so would it be best to have a strategy first, maybe, rather than open up all these doors for communication, which you don't really need if your strategy doesn't fit the...
Yeah, well, I think, if you're comfortable with whatever you're doing at the moment, but I suppose my premise is, if you're trying to speak to new audiences and also engage your current audience, you want to be on the platforms where they are. And if you look around the room, like nearly everyone's got a Facebook account, nearly everyone's got a Twitter account, nearly everyone's got an Instagram account. So, being able to speak to them on those platforms is important because, we heard a little bit about email lists before, and email lists are still very effective, but email open rates are dropping significantly and have been for years. Because why? Like, everyone remembers probably when email comes around, what was it been, like 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago? You kind of read every word in every email. And now who does that? Like, if you see my Gmail account, I'm glad they brought that social and promotions tabs in. It's ugly. I don't read anything. So it goes back to the theme of attention. Where's people's attention? Like, are people, constantly on their Gmail account on this, or are they on Facebook or Instagram? Pete?
A very good presentation, and I think what you're providing is really valuable. But I think over the last 2 or 3 years, Golf Victoria has been significantly putting into online marketing and social media. I'm interested to know, one, the success rates of that versus print, and then two, on the other side is cost benefit. Are you finding that there's a more cost-effective way in getting more reach from the online stuff if it's been successful?
Yeah, we're definitely finding it's more successful, and we don't really do a whole bunch in print at Golf Victoria. So, for instance, the Mazda 4-ball entries are currently open. So we're pouring a lot of our, I suppose, resource into Facebook advertising, but also developing. So we've got, over the last couple of years, we've obviously got a couple of thousand email addresses from registrations of the Mazda 4-ball. So of course, traditional email marketing, we send out communication via that. We put it in our e-newsletter as well, which is about 22,000 people there. But I think our average email open rate's around about 35%. I think industry standard's probably about 30. So, not everyone opens that, but then we've created audiences from those email addresses on Facebook, and we've said, we've put some ad creative around that, and that's where we're kind of pouring our time into. I mean, print can still be effective, but if we go back to what digital's unfair advantage is too, unless I suppose you put an ad in the Herald Sun that says, go to Huntingdale/Herald Sun promo or September promo or whatever, it's very hard to track, I suppose, the effectiveness of that ad, whereas Facebook's back end will tell you like that. Any others? Don't know what the time is. I've gone over, Ben. Any others? Nope. Yeah, best question. There's lots. I have to think. Might have to go back to the replay, Raheem. Yeah. I'll announce the best question tonight because I'm gonna have to think about that. There's some good ones. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll. And if you want to, I've got business cards here at the front, but you can find me anywhere there. And that's actually a poster from Facebook's headquarters.
Great.
Cheers, mate.
On behalf of GMV, Greg, you've been making a big push with Golf Victoria to drive the social media, and I think we can all see the benefits. And there's a lot of inter-club activity. If you're on social media, Facebook and the like, Greg and his team are doing work behind the scenes to help other clubs with their posts that they're making as well. So, you know, it's very much an integrated platform. I think the message that it isn't going anywhere, but it's just going to keep changing because it's in their interest to keep changing it as well. We've been talking about it for years and years, yet by the dialogue and the questions in the room, you know, we still have a lot to do. And you know, we had a very interesting case here in the last 2 weeks where we're dabbling now in paid marketing online. We spent about $10. We're looking to fill some last minute midweek to round out the month of September in our accommodation. We spent about $10 or $9 something, and we generated $1,000 in accommodation sales in 24 hours.
Sounds like pretty good ROI.
Very good. So thank you again,
Yep.
and look forward to catching up tonight.
Cheers.
Very good.